In March 1943, 18 men sailed toward a German ship hiding in neutral Goa. They were not elite commandos. Most were middle-aged bankers, merchants, lawyers, and accountants from Calcutta. Some were overweight. Several had not seen combat. Yet that night, armed with explosives and an aging river barge, they attempted one of Britain's most politically dangerous raids of the war. The target was the Ehrenfels, a German merchant ship sheltering in Mormugao harbor. Goa was then controlled by neutral Portugal. The British could watch the vessel, but they could not openly attack it without violating Portuguese territory and risking an international crisis. At first, the ship appeared harmless. It sat at anchor alongside other Axis merchant vessels that had taken refuge when war began. But Allied ships crossing the Indian Ocean were being found and sunk by German U-boats with alarming precision. British intelligence intercepted coded transmissions and came to believe shipping information was being passed from Goa, possibly through a concealed transmitter aboard the Ehrenfels and a German intelligence network ashore. Stopping it presented a trap. A Royal Navy attack would be an act of war inside a neutral harbor. Diplomatic pressure might warn the Germans. A conventional commando mission could expose Britain even if it succeeded. The Special Operations Executive therefore looked for men who could carry out the raid without appearing to be serving members of Britain's regular forces. Their answer was the Calcutta Light Horse, a reserve cavalry regiment nearly 1,400 miles away. Its members had joined expecting ceremonial duties and occasional training, not secret warfare. By 1943, many were considered too old for frontline service. That made them strangely useful. If captured, London could distance itself from a group of private citizens engaged in an unauthorized adventure. 14 volunteers from the Light Horse and 4 from the Calcutta Scottish were selected. They trained quietly in boarding, weapons, and explosives. Their transport was the Phoebe, an old hopper barge that looked nothing like a warship. It traveled around the Indian coast, while some of the raiders went separately by train before joining it closer to Goa. The operation relied on more than force. It needed distraction. Goa was celebrating Carnival, and a well-funded party helped draw sailors away from the ships. As music, alcohol, and celebration filled the town, the Phoebe approached the harbor in darkness. Conveniently, the lighthouse and an illuminated navigation buoy were not operating. Shortly after midnight, on March 9th, the raiders came alongside the Ehrenfels. Surprise was their main protection. They climbed aboard, fought members of the remaining crew, and moved toward the transmitter and the ship's controls. The plan was to capture or disable the vessel before Portuguese authorities understood what was happening. But the German captain and crew had prepared their own answer. Rather than allow the ship to be taken, they opened seacocks and set scuttling charges. Fire spread as the Ehrenfels began settling into the harbor. Crews aboard the nearby German ships Drachenfels and Braunfels and the Italian Amphora saw the destruction and scuttled their vessels as well. The British had hoped to seize one ship. Instead, the Axis crews destroyed 4. The raiders withdrew aboard the Phoebe and sent the code word announcing success. They returned to India without medals, public celebrations, or official stories. The mission could not be acknowledged because, officially, Britain had not attacked neutral Goa. Portuguese authorities detained the Axis survivors. A local court later treated the sinkings as actions by the crews rather than publicly accepting that a British raiding party had entered the harbor. The wrecks remained as physical evidence of an event governments preferred to describe carefully or not at all. Allied shipping losses in the region fell sharply immediately afterward. Although wartime patterns had multiple causes and the exact effect of the transmitter remains debated, what is certain is that the suspected intelligence source was silenced and 4 Axis ships were removed from the war without a formal naval battle. The operation remained secret for decades. Its volunteers went back to offices, businesses, and families. On paper, they were ordinary middle-aged civilians. For one night, however, the men Britain considered too old for the front line sailed into a neutral enemy harbor and carried out the sort of mission normally reserved for commandos. They did not look like heroes from a war film. Years later, their story became one